Welcome to Mike Chimeri's Music Collection. It's another Debut Albums by Decade episode, and the last for now. We're focusing on the 1990s this time, and I've chosen 8 albums. Let's begin. 1990 was a banner year for debut albums, as 3 made my list. First is Life Colors by guitarist Chuck Loeb. Besides the guitar, Chuck also plays synthesizer on the album. The rest of the keyboard duties went to Jim Beard. Will Lee was on bass with Zach Danziger on drums. Chuck's Steps Ahead bandmate Michael Brecker plays tenor sax on John Leslie for West Montgomery and Gravity. Bill Evans, also from Steps Ahead and no relation to the late pianist, plays soprano sax on Kali O, the last track on Life Colors. Sammy Figueroa is on percussion on a handful of tracks, and Chuck's wife Carmen Cuesta vocalizes throughout the album. Other standout tracks are 7th Avenue South, Springs, the title track, and Snow Song. The second 1990 debut was by saxophonist Dave Koz, whose album bears his name. My favorite tracks are So Far From Home, Emily, Give It Up, Perfect Stranger, Endless Summer Nights, and Castle of Dreams, which features Tom Scott on the Yamaha WX7 Iwi, or electronic wind instrument, and Dave's brother Jeff on keyboards, guitar, and drum programming. Dave plays Iwi himself on Emily and Endless Summer Nights, a Richard Marx cover. Otherwise, you can hear Dave on alto and soprano sax. Ken Navarro, who worked with Dave Koz in the past, debuted the same year as Dave with The River Flows. This is the third and final 1990 debut on this list. Ken had been a Los Angeles session musician in the 80s, but was on the verge of moving home to the Baltimore suburbs when he put out The River Flows. Ken was a one-man band, playing most of the instruments, acoustically and electronically, and vocalizing on Try Again. Steve Parent provided additional drum and percussion programming, Peter Gordon played soprano sax on In Your Arms, and Born Yesterday had Devon Pershing on piano. Other tracks include the title track, the energetic first track Rough House, Thinking of You, and Reach Out. On to the second year in the decade with Foreplay and their eponymous debut album. Foreplay was made up of Bob James on piano and keyboards, Nathan East on bass, Lee Ritenour on guitar, and Harvey Mason on drums. By the end of the decade, Lee gave way to Larry Carlton, followed by Chuck Loeb a decade after that. Among the tracks on the album are Bali Run, Foreplay with the traditional spelling, Moonjogger, Maxoman, Midnight Stroll, October Morning, and 101 Eastbound, written by and featuring Nathan East. Nate would write 2 more songs bearing his last name on the 2 albums that followed. Guitarist Norman Brown debuted in 1992 with Just Between Us. Coincidentally, Gerald Albright, who plays tenor sax on the first track, Stormin', as in Stormin' Norman, also debuted with an album called Just Between Us 5 years earlier. Besides Gerald, Stormin' also features Kirk Whalum on tenor sax and Ronnie Laws on soprano sax. Stormin' was one of many gems on Just Between Us. Others include the title track, It's a Feelin', East Meets West, Here to Stay, Inside, the Earth, Wind & Fire cover Love's Holiday, the Stevie Wonder cover Too High, which features Stevie himself along with Boyz II Men, and Something Just for You. Some of these tracks were played during local forecasts on the Weather Channel. Key among those was Something Just for You. I loved the sound of it enough to record the 2-minute local forecast excerpt to microcassette recorder in December 1993. It would be another 6 years before I finally bought a copy of Just Between Us. Words can't describe how much I enjoy it. In 1993, after years with Jefferson Starship, and just plain Starship, guitarist Craig Chiquiso made his solo debut with Acoustic Highway. This is the first New Age album I've referenced on this show, though there has been a contemporary jazz element to some of Craig's compositions. My favorite tracks on Acoustic Highway are the title track, Mountain in the Mist, Return of the Eagle, Sacred Ground, and Land of the Giants. UK acid jazz group Down to the Bone made their US debut in 1997 with their Love Letter to New York City, From Manhattan to Staten, an album released in the UK the year before. A few tracks on this album, Brooklyn Heights, Carlito's Way, and On the Corner of Darcy Street, got airplay on CD 101.9, New York City's smooth jazz station for 20 years. The frequency is now home to the FM feed of WFAN. A few other songs I like from Manhattan to Staten are Staten Island Groove, Savor the Flavor, and 3 Days in Manhattan. Our 1990s debut album list concludes in 1998 with Stay a While by saxophonist Steve Cole. Steve is backed up by Brian Culbertson's keyboards and drum programming. Stay a While also features guitar by Paul Jackson Jr. and Tim Morey, percussion by Lenny Castro, and Richard Patterson on bass. My favorite tracks are It's Gonna Be Alright, Say It Again, the title track, When I Think of You, and Our Love. There you have it, 8 debut albums from the 1990s. Let me know in the comments below if any of those are in your collection. Until the next episode, thanks for watching. So long.